Have you ever known someone who had a photographic memory? You may be one of those folks. Now, I'm not talking about the person that can read a book and then recite it back to you. I'm talking about the kind of photographic memory that remembers everything, it seems, that ever happened to them and to those they know, no matter how far back in time it goes. It calls it the memory of an elephant. They never forget anything. I am not one of those people. In fact, I found this. Everyone has a photographic memory, said Stephen Wright. Just some of us don't have film. And I'm the one that doesn't have the film, which as I say that word, film, I wonder if our children will even know what film was. I am, it seems, always surrounded by folks that have these photographic memories, however. My mother will ask me about people from my past, bringing up a personal Trivia Pursuit question from when I was 4 or 14 that I can never remember who she's talking about. Now, Charlotte and our son Nathan have this gift as well. A moment in time past is as vivid as time right now for them. Vivid memories are ways some of us, many of us, measure time. I'm old enough to remember when President Kennedy was shot and assassinated. And I marked time differently after that. I grew up at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, and all of my friends were part of the Air Force culture. And so as this energy in the country happened in me in 3rd grade when President Kennedy was shot, I remember time before that, but I remember that time changed after that. 9/11, 9/11, time. It has vivid memories for us, and we mark that as time before 9/11 and time after 9/11. And now the people of France, they have a marker, vivid memories. The world before Friday the 13th, the world after Friday the 13th. Vivid memories are the ways that we measure time. Some of us measure time by our dreams realized. Some folks measure time by dreams yet to be realized. And sadly, some don't want to measure time anymore. The measuring of time and how time pushes and pulls us all. When Charlotte and I moved to Colorado back in the mid-90s, I decided I was going to stop measuring time by throwing away my cell phone and my watch. I thought, got a new life in Colorado. I'm going to take my time, change the passing of time, slow time down. It didn't last very long. I found out that in the multitasking, caffeine-fueled Energizer Bunny world, that world doesn't look favorably on people who move at their own time. We're engulfed in a world that keeps reminding us how short time is, how fast time goes. We all live in a world racing by where time management is an issue that's spoken and unspoken. And even if we had all the time in the world, there never seems to be enough time. Scientists tell us the universe is both expanding and speeding up. I don't have any idea what that means, other than it sounds like even the cosmos is working against me as well. There's more to do and more I need to explore and less time for me to do it. This past year, a friend and neighbor of ours in Colorado died of cancer. Our friend Annie had gone every year for checkups. Her mother had had cancer, so she was proactive with her health. But in the 12 months between checkups, a cancer began, and then it raged in her body. Annie had a wonderful marriage to Bob, had a good job, and 2 emerging adult children. She owned a great house in Breckenridge, Colorado, where she and her family lived. It was right across the lane from me and Charlotte. Yet even this young mother, Annie, now realized time may well be running out. When we lived across the street in Breckenridge from Annie and Bob, Charlotte took the time to take Annie to the hospital, to sit with her after chemo and radiation, to listen as Annie processed time that was running much faster than she would care to think that it ever could have or would have. This past 12 months, we've had 6 funerals here at St. Timothy's, and Annie died this year. And all of them were reminders. They're reminders for me, and I always ask myself the same question, the question that never changes. What would I do differently if I knew I had a measured amount of time left on this earth? What would I do differently? How would you answer that eternal question? Would you live differently than you do today if you had a measured amount of time? Would you consider what you do every day, how you spend and use your time, what you push for, what you fight for, what consumes you today as that important? In light of eternity, what is most important to you? And what would be important if time were an issue? Well, our scripture today reminds us that it is. All of Mark's 13th chapter, Jesus is talking about change, big change. And the disciples want to know when. They want an accurate forecast so they can plan ahead, so they can pace themselves, not too fast, not too slow, just right. The Goldilocks window of living in time. But the gospel doesn't tell us when. From the ancient Mayans to Nostradamus, remember Y2K, and always, every year, Hollywood and the video gamers offer us new information, new movies, new stimulus. That there has never been any shortage of end-of-the-world scenarios. Remember the predictions of nuclear winter? They're now replaced with global warming. The gospel does not tell us when time will end, but the scripture does tell us, don't believe anyone's countdown or doomsday calendar, and don't get sidetracked looking for clues for calculation. Even Jesus did not have that bit of knowledge. The very thing that you will hear that some people say they profess to know that day or the hour. Apocalyptic literature has been co-opted by some groups to be hyper-prophetic, doom and gloom. But every time I read Mark 13, I'm not depressed. I'm energized that the world is changing. Yes, there is horrible things that happen. But don't dwell on the unknowable, the uncontrollable, the unfathomable. Focus your time, in the meantime, on how you use this precious and limited resource. Live fully and faithfully in the time God has placed you in. Jesus says, if you will keep my word in the fabric of your being, then nothing can defeat God's purposes for you. No force can rob you of God's plan for your life. So be faithful in time. Be watchful with time. And be aware that God is connected to the past, the future, and in this moment and time. The words of Jesus encourage us to be faithful and not frozen by forecasts. Advent will begin in a few weeks. The theme of Advent is our call to be intentional and aware, to consider in light of eternity what is important. It is a new beginning. Advent encourages us to pull over from the mad dash to year's end, take some time every day, and discover in our everyday the many ways that God is always connecting with us, and to be encouraged in light of eternity.